Welcome to Open House with Gerry Cornejo, where we feature people, places, and things that are in the news or who should be in the news. And of course, one of the most interesting topics we can discuss is about the Philippine economy because it affects the more than 100 million Filipinos. And with us now, we have a political economist, and he's been with us before, and he's none other than Mr. Calixto Chikiamco. Toti, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, good. Now, Toti, kaya ko siya tinatawag ng Toti, classmate ko yan, no? Okay, so anyway, many years ago in LaSalle, many hairs ago. Many hairs ago in LaSalle. Okay, so anyway, Toti, the reason we invited you over is because you'll be launching a book very soon. And it's going to be, ano ang title ng book mo?
The Way Forward, The Path to Inclusive Growth.
Okay. And of course, this is a book about what?
Well, it's a curated collection of my columns, but mainly it will deal with how to achieve inclusive growth for the Philippines. Inclusive because it should benefit everybody. Growth should lift all boats, so to speak. You know, so. Because right now, what we're experiencing has been, not really benefiting everybody. Poverty remains very high. Unemployment is still the highest in Southeast Asia. So, although we have been enjoying 6.5% growth for the past 5 years, for the many, it has not trickled down. So, my book will discuss how to achieve inclusive growth. And also it deals with various topics that which I dealt with, including law and economics, the application of economics to legal analysis. It talks about technology in society, because as I told you, I'm a tech entrepreneur. So I discuss about the impact of technology in society. So a lot of various topics.
Now, let's get first into something very interesting. You said it hasn't trickled down.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, how long does it take? You're a political, we get into political, being a political economist later on, but your book wants inclusive growth and primarily because it does not trickle down to the masses.
That's right.
So, how long does it usually take for economic growth to trickle down to the masses?
Well, it depends on what kind of economic growth that you're experiencing. Right now, what we're experiencing is really consumption-driven growth, which is really powered by OFW remittances and not investment-driven growth. So there's not really many jobs that are being created. The jobs that are being created are actually, let's say, for example, like the BPOs. These are mainly benefiting college-educated, English-speaking, professionals, rather than the mass of people, especially in the rural areas where many poor people live.
Okay, but then it has trickled down, but not as quickly as possible as many of us would like to see it happen, no? Because all of these college graduates you're talking about who have been absorbed by the BPOs, that number I think in the millions, otherwise would not have jobs.
Correct.
So
sure.
It has generated employment.
Sure.
It has trickled down. Now, what will it take for it to have inclusive growth? Like, tama na ba yung how many years as this present, is on his 5th year, this present dispensation? How long does it usually take for this economic growth to reach down to the masses?
Well, as I said, it depends on the type of economic growth that you're
the one that
and right now, it serves as growth, and it is not trickling down to the majority of the poor. It is maybe you're talking about, say, the professionals, as you said, but not for the majority of the poor who live in the rural areas or in urban poor neighborhoods.
Okay. Now, I'm under this impression that one of the reasons it hasn't trickled down to the people at the bottom of the pyramid is because there hasn't been enough government spending. Is that true?
Well, it's true that economic growth has slowed down because the government is underspending.
Underspending.
It's underspending.
Is this the first time it's happened in the history of the Philippines, na underspending? Not because it's disappearing and somebody's using it for, graft and corruption, but because it's there, hindi ginagamit. So, because if you use it, you will generate jobs, you will generate employment, you will stir up the economy.
Sure.
So is this the reason? Is this one of the main reasons why it hasn't trickled down? Because the money is there for investments, the money is there for infrastructure, but then it hasn't been touched or it hasn't been used enough. Is that the reason?
It's
or?
one of the reasons, but it's not the main reason. But
Okay.
it's one of the reasons, certainly, especially government underspending in infrastructure. If our infrastructure is poor, then our industries cannot be competitive. Therefore, they cannot expand and hire. Correct. So it has an indirect impact in terms of on terms of jobs and incomes. No.
Okay.
So yes, it is one of the reasons. Now, why is it the government underspending? The state capacity to spend is really very limited right now.
And for instance, if there was enough government spending on projects that will, for infrastructure among them, how much of this would trickle down? How much of the population of those who are poor will trickle down? Is it going to be a significant figure or insignificant?
Well, again, it depends on where they spend. But they say, again, infrastructure, of course, it will help, especially those involved in construction. And if they spend it in the countryside, certainly it would help generate jobs in the countryside, where many poor people live. But that's not the structural problems that are holding back job growth in the Philippines.
Okay. Now, why are we not investment-driven? Why are there not enough investments coming in? Like, for instance, all of these international financial institutions have said, ano ba yan? Investment grade yan ang tawag sa atin, ha? The Philippines is ready for big-time investment, so all of you big companies, the Fortune 500, if the Philippines is, if Southeast Asia is your target, then the Philippines is wide open. Is it happening, not happening?
It's not happening because even local, it's not just foreigners, but even local businessmen are not investing.
Because?
Because first, there are monopolies and duopolies in strategic sectors of the economy. You talk of ports, telecommunications, power distribution, cement, etc.
Okay.
And therefore, this results in very high costs and bad service for the downstream and upstream industries. So businessmen are not investing because it's just, they are not going to be competitive with their ASEAN neighbors because of this high cost. One example, for example, is the internet. As in the Philippines is one of the highest, slowest internet speeds at a high cost.
Right.
And therefore, if you are a small business and you want to sell to the internet to the ASEAN, you're at a disadvantage relative to your competitors abroad.
But what are the different, I'm sure there are other growth areas in terms of investment aside from the ones you mentioned. Of course, those are what you mentioned, like telecommunications, cement.
Yeah, those are strategic industries. In other words, their outputs is inputs to other industries.
Okay.
So they are strategic, and therefore, but if there are monopolies in those sectors, it results in higher costs downstream.
Okay.
So that's why I'm for changing the lifting the foreign ownership restrictions in the Constitution, so we can have foreign companies here to provide competition to these monopolies and duopolies, so that we will have lower prices and better service.
Okay. So do you foresee this happening?
The lifting the
yeah, what you just mentioned.
Well, I don't know at this point. Speaker Belmonte has commendably been trying to push this. No.
So excuse me, this will take legislation.
It will take a constitutional amendment.
Okay. All right.
And I think Speaker Belmonte is trying to. In fact, what he's proposing is is in a way less controversial because he's saying only that to insert the phrase unless provided by law into Constitution so that these prohibitions can be later on legislated out.
okay.
You don't need a constitutional
Right,
amendment,
right.
right? Which you need two-thirds approval and so forth. No, so I don't know. It was supposed to have been passed about a month and a half ago, but Speaker Belmonte held back. I think the reason for that is that the President's own favorite bill, the BBL, has not been passed. So I think he felt it prudent to hold back until the President's bill has been passed, if it will be passed.
Okay. Now, so ang Congress ngayon, under the leadership of Speaker Belmonte,
That's correct.
they are, it is open to
Lifting the restrictions, yes.
So open sila ron.
Open sila
Because they can easily constitute themselves, to constitute themselves into a constituent
assembly.
Yes, di ba?
Yeah, pero ang mode of amending it that they've decided is not a constituent assembly because that would open up even the political aspects. So ang mode that they're choosing, which is called a surgical amendment, which is only a specific provision. The Congress has to pass it separately, the Senate has to pass it separately by 2/3 of the houses. And if both are passed, then it will be submitted to the public for ratification.
Okay, because delikado nga yung pag naging constituent assembly sila because the whole constitution is going to be wide
pwede lang
open.
sabihin
The term of the president.
that is indefinite.
Right, right,
Diba?
right.
Ganoon. Oo. So that's kind of dangerous.
Okay, so when we come back, we're going to be going on a short break. When we come back, we're going to be giving the economic managers and the financial management team of the present dispensation a grade according to your standards, to your criteria.
Okay.
And now, again, can you tell us again your credentials as a political analyst, Toti?
Well, I've been writing about political economy for more than a decade now.
Okay.
I finished economics in school.
And your schools are?
LaSalle.
And?
Yeah.
The
Well,
master's plan,
abroad,
yeah?
it's really, I was in mass communication,
okay.
in media. But I've been writing about politics and economics for a long time now.
Have you ever been involved with any economic body, whether it's private or public? Or?
Well, I'm the president of the Foundation for Economic Freedom. It's composed of economists, etc. I've been offered, positions before in government, which I've turned down.
Okay.
I
For obvious
don't have the
reasons.
stomach for a government job. So,
Okay, hold that thought. We have Mr. Calixto Chikiamco with us, a political analyst, and we're talking about political economist. And we're talking about Philippine economic inclusive growth. And later on, we're going to be giving our leaders grade on their performance this past 5 years. I'll be back right after this. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Welcome back to Open House with Gerry Cornejo, where we feature people, places, and things that are in the news or who should be in the news. And now if you're interested about, and you should be, about economic growth in the Philippines, and especially, specifically, inclusive economic growth, which means everybody in the pyramid, of course, the top guys, individuals and corporations always make the most money. But how do you make it trickle down, to reduce the poverty level and to make sure that Juan de la Cruz, whether he's in the urban or agriculture areas, will also profit from economic growth. And we have with us Mr. Calixto Toti Chikiamco. So again, Toti, we were discussing earlier about the reasons for economic growth. And one of the reasons you mentioned was that kaya hindi nagiging inclusive is because it's driven
by consumption rather than investment.
Consumption because of the remittances of our OFWs.
Correct.
Ngayon, ang kulang sa atin, yung investments.
That's right.
Local and foreign.
That's right.
Now, during the break, we were discussing this, and what are the other necessary factors to get this inclusive growth into our economy?
Well, one of the things that I think we have to do is to modernize our labor code. Because our labor code focuses on high legal minimum wages, which are unrelated to productivity. At the same time, it's very restrictive that you have to, for example, make somebody permanent after 6 months. So what is the net effect of this? This has been studied by many economists, and they find that the legal minimum wages in the Philippines, in fact, according to the World Bank, we have one of the highest legal minimum wages in the world relative to average wages.
Okay.
And even relative to productivity, we have the highest legal minimum wages in the world. So what's the net effect of this? Net effect of this is labor-intensive industries, like garments, for example, they've fled, right? Do not thrive in the Philippines, the labor-intensive industry. So, because of the high minimum wages and the inability you're constricted by having to hire people on a permanent basis after 6 months.
Yung ganyan ba, di ba nangyari sa ibang bansa yan? In other words, in other countries, in 6 months, there is no law. So you can go on indefinitely.
Well, as you know, even in the States, they just give you a pink slip and then you're fired, right? I mean, they don't even give you 6 months.
So walang security of
Walang
tenure.
security of
Pero pag lumampas ka na ng 6 months, sa Amerika ba or in any first
In
world
here,
country?
it's very, very difficult because to let go of somebody after 6 months, they're considered permanent. You have to build a very strong case against them, including warnings after so long, And if especially kung bago yung worker, it's hard for them to be productive after 6 months, right?
Okay.
So what is the result of this? The labor-intensive industries, they're going to Vietnam, they're going to Laos, Cambodia, etc., whereas we have the highest unemployment rate here in Southeast Asia. So why can't those industries come here in the Philippines? Precisely because our wages, our legal minimum wages are very high.
Okay, how do you solve that, Toti?
Well, I think we should, I don't know if politically that can, in other countries, they don't set a legal minimum wages. They just set, for example, the minimum social protections, which means like pag-ibig, social security, health, etc.
Right. Okay.
But the wages are negotiated between the worker and the businessman, the capitalist, right?
Pero hindi ba sa Amerika, one of the biggest capitalist countries in the world, if not the biggest, meron silang minimum wage, $12 or $15 an hour? Or,
Okay, there's a different situation in America rather than in the Philippines. In the Philippines, we have a lot of surplus labor.
Okay.
In fact, a lot of our surplus labor are in fact moving abroad because they cannot find jobs here.
OFWs.
Yeah.
Oh.
10% of our population are actually abroad. So, in a way, you can say that's part of the unemployed sa Pilipinas. But if you look at the unemployed and underemployed sa Philippines, it's 1/4 of our labor force. 25% are unemployed or underemployed.
Okay.
Many of them just, maybe work 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week and in low-paying jobs. Selling DVD or, working as a gasoline boy, mga ganon. So, marami low-paid jobs and marami walang trabaho. So why don't we attract these industries na labor-intensive? Garments, and then, si Dr. Gerry Sikat, he is the first NEDA secretary. Sabi niya, I looked, he's a tennis player, said, tingnan ko yung tennis ball ko, nakalagay, made in Vietnam. Why can't it be made here in the Philippines?
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem is that we have very high legal minimum wages, unrelated to productivity, Importante kasi it must be related to productivity. Now, sinasabi mo, una, kawawa naman yung mga workers kasi first of all, a paying job is better than no job at all.
Yes,
Hindi ba?
Of course.
Oh. So, and secondly, even sabihin mong sa umpisa, low wages sila, they'll learn. They'll have a resume. Correct?
Okay.
Rather than not being able to work at all.
Okay.
Ngayon, kung miskin na nakatrabaho sila and then they can get the skills, in-house, in the workplace, then they can, if their productivity rises, they can go anywhere. They can, because now it's a globalized ang labor force natin, workforce. If you're not getting paid what you want, you can always go to other countries. You know, it's an example, you know, as you know, I told you I'm a tech entrepreneur.
Yes.
I have programmers, right? Yung mga iba right out of college, they go to, we hire them. But you know, sometimes you have to double their salary after 6 months. Alam, because with the knowledge they have, they can go to Singapore and earn 3 times, 4 times that. So my point is productivity is what determines income. So if you have improve your productivity, then you will have higher wages.
Okay, pero parang chicken and egg yata yung Toti because like for instance, magkano bang take-home pay yata ng minimum wage earners? 12,000, 15,000, somewhere there.
That's right.
So can you imagine if you're supporting a family, how can you live? How can you possibly live on 15,000 a month? Di ba?
Others are living with less than that because they have a quarter has unemployed and underemployed. They don't even get 15,000 a month. So what you want to do is to bring more people into the labor force. If you have a family, that's
kahit, excuse me, kahit babaan yung
kahit babaan, they will have more employment.
Basta may income.
Mas may income. And then, for example, if the family is able to work, right? Sabihin mong 4 kayo. You know, you have 2 sons and the husband and wife are able to work. And they're making, say, 7,000 a month. 7,000 times 4, that's what you bring home to the family.
Okay.
Because the fact is, there's a surplus of labor, and they're looking for jobs. So why not let capital come here and be able to hire them?
But that's easier said
Kasi,
than
alam
done,
mo,
di ba? Itong capital, sinasabi mo, babaan ng minimum wage, ang legal minimum wage, mas maraming papasok dito.
Correct.
So more people will be employed. Okay.
Alam mo, yun ang solusyon sa China. Alam mo, sa China, walang minimum wage nung una. In fact, walang union pa nga dyan kasi Communist Party lang ang union,
Right.
di ba? And look what happening now. Mas marami silang, in fact, right now, there's a shortage of labor in China.
They're getting all the labor-intensive jobs.
Their minimum wage now is about 3 times our minimum wage. When they started 20, 30 years ago, you know, mas mababa pa yung sweldo nila doon kaysa dito.
Yung standard of living naman nila. Baka mas mura naman doon. Baka meron silang socialized housing, meron silang food subsidy.
Plus yung sweldo na, mas mataas ka na ngayon.
Okay.
Because of the employment growth.
Hindi, pero noon, the reason that they could live on meager salary was because of the government inputs. Hindi ba?
Hindi nga, in terms of even the labor, in terms of even their health benefits, it's even, in a way, not as secure as sa atin eh.
Yung mga permanent employees, diba? Yung mga tinatawag na lumampas ng 6 months. Kaya ngayon,
Hindi, wala doon yung permanent at kwanis. Di sa Pilipinas lang yung 6 months permanent eh.
Alright.
Oo.
Alright. So, now, so we named investments dito sa, of course, yung isa, sinabi
One is
mo,
monopoly, second, yung ano.
investment-driven, tapos ang labor code, kailangan natin ayusin.
Pangatlo, ang kailangan natin is improve yung productivity in agriculture natin.
Okay. So, when these things we're discussing, yan din ba mga priority or we're just naming them at random? So, in other words, investments, first of all, should come in. Number 1 yan. Pangalawa, labor code. Pangatlo...
They're supporting of each other.
Okay.
You know?
So, pero anong priority natin? Agricultural. Ngayon, kasi pagkain natin, nag-i-import pa tayo. Di ba? So,
well, I don't see anything wrong with importing food.
Okay.
You know, in fact, one of my recommendations is that we should liberalize rice importation.
Okay.
Because the world market price of rice, I mean, let's say in Vietnam, is half of the rice here.
Okay.
No? So,
doon na lang tayo bumili.
Why don't we import the rice like Malaysia? They're not self-sufficient in rice. They target 30% importation, 70% would be grown.
Dito sa atin, anong percentage ang ini-import natin?
I'm not sure. I think it's about 1 million tons of rice, but I think it's about 10%.
Okay.
The government has been is undertaking a rice self-sufficiency program, which I think is wrong.
Okay.
You know, it's wrong.
Okay.
Because we don't have a competitive advantage in rice. we don't have the alluvial plains now with like in Vietnam or Thailand, they have the Mekong River to, So, and because of the archipelago and mountainous, magiging mataas talaga ang cost to produce rice sa atin. So why don't we just import the rice at, let's say, 10 pesos, 5 to 10 pesos cheaper than what we're paying for now, and then shift us to the higher value-added crops where we get more income. So importante is income security, not rice security.
So that's what's going to happen to the rice farmers. Mag-shift sila ng crops.
Yes.
Para lumaki ang kita nila using the same land.
Correct.
All right. By the way, Toti, can you mention again where you write the column?
Right now, I write a column in Business World once. It's actually just once a month.
Okay.
As part, because I'm part of the board of an Institute of Development and Econometric Analysis. We rotate the column among Dr. Fabella, Dr. Noel de Dios, and Romy Bernardo, the former Finance Undersecretary.
Okay.
So apat kami nag-rotate.
Meron ka bang particular day that your column comes out?
It always comes out on a Monday, but it rotates.
It rotates. So
Yeah.
Business World.
Business World.
Business World. Anong pangalan ng column mo, Toti?
Introspective.
So, pero pangalan ng column ng iba is different.
It's the same also.
It's the same. Okay. So watch out for introspective. If you want to know more about Philippine and world economics, then read the introspective column at Business World. It comes out every Monday.
Yeah.
Every Monday. Okay. Ngayon, one more thing we're going to be talking about when we come back. We're going to be discussing a book that Mr. Calixto Chikiamco will be launching very soon, and it will be available in National Bookstore. Yeah, I was thinking of how to go around mentioning the name, but no, but we're good. We're good. I mean, most of the time, naman, you look for a book. Where do you go? That's where you go.
Okay.
So, meron kang book launching then,
Yes.
and this is going to be
November 26. August 26.
August 26. Okay. So August 26, Wednesday. But if you miss that, it's going to be in that bookstore, and we'll mention again to you the title of the book. We can't show you the book now because the launching has not yet been done, but eventually, maybe after the launching, we can have a part 2 of this series, and Mr. Calixto Chikiamco can discuss this all over again. Or because hindi natin mapapag-usapan lahat ng laman ng libro, di ba? So when we come back, we're going to talk about the book and the highlights of the book, the most important things that we should not miss. Of course, it's important from cover to cover, but there are highlights that we will be discussing. Open House with Gerry Cornejo with Mr. Calixto Chikiamco. We'll be back right after this. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Open House with Gerry Cornejo, where we feature people, places, and things that are in the news or who should be in the news. And by the way, this program airs every Thursday at 6:10 p.m. and every Friday at 9 in the morning. And you can watch this program on Channel 8 of Destiny Cable TV. GSAT, we're on Channel 1. And on Sky Cable, we are on 213. GNN, Global News Network. And it airs nationwide and in 7 countries in Southeast Asia, including Mongolia. And we have with us Mr. Calixto Chikiamco, and we are discussing inclusive Philippine economic growth. But the key word here is inclusive, because economic growth, if it doesn't reach the masses, parang baliwala rin, di ba, Toti? I mean, it's just going to be a statistic. Okay, now tell us again about your book and then the highlights of your book, Toti. The title of your book again is?
The title of my book is The Way Forward, The Path to Inclusive Growth.
Okay. Excuse me, what made you write this book, Toti?
Well, what made me write this book is to sort of to gain attention of policymakers that if we want really inclusive growth, for the growth to reach the masses, this is what we have to do. In other words, I'm playing out a prescription.
Okay. Now, in your book, does it also have a timeline? Like for instance, if we initiate this on day 1, by day this or year that, we will achieve it. O wala naman.
Wala namang timeline,
Okay.
but I'm saying that if we implement this, we will have sustained inclusive economic growth, even double digit. That's you know.
So in other words, what you're doing here is you're pointing out the way. This is the direction we go. The speed of which we move here is up to you or up to the policymakers, but you're pointing out the way. This is the way to go.
Yes, because you know, what the government is saying is that walang korap, walang mahirap, di ba? Pero hindi totoo yun eh, na good governance will lead to the elimination of poverty.
Okay.
You know, so what I'm saying, it's what's more important is the structure. We address the structural problems of the economy. You know, so, yung mga ibang bansang katabi natin,
Yeah.
like for example Indonesia,
Okay.
like Suharto was known for being corrupt. He had a lot of cronies, etc. But he was able to reduce poverty from about 60% when he started to about 13%.
13.
13 about 10 years ago, before he died, he was able to reduce it to 13%.
Okay.
So, you know, he was able to reduce poverty. In fact, their poverty levels in Indonesia are lower than ours.
Okay. Now, Toti, let's get back to your book. Like, again, ang pinaka-target market nito, of course, is every Filipino, but especially policymakers.
Correct.
Now, Toti, what are the highlights of your book? We cannot discuss every point in your book, but what is it that could really be life-changing in terms of the Philippine economy?
As I said, there are four important, well, in a way, four important things that we have to do.
Okay.
One is openness to foreign investments. We have
Okay.
to open up, you know,
Okay.
provide competition to the local sector, you know, open up retail trade, open up the economy.
Okay.
Okay? The second is, as I said, let's modernize the labor code, you know, to focus on productivity.
Okay.
All right? The third that I want is let's improve agriculture productivity. How do we do this? We have to end CARP.
End CARP.
End CARP because it deters investments in agriculture. Why would you invest in land when it will just be taken away from you? And there are many other faults of CARP.
Okay.
Because under CARP, you can only own up to 5 hectares. Imagine if I'm an efficient farmer, how can I expand? You're not allowed to expand. Under CARP.
Ganun ba yun?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So efficient farmers can never buy out inefficient ones. That's why ang average age ng mga farmer natin dito, 57 years old eh. Because the young don't see any future in farming. So what we need to do is to amend CARP to allow CARP holders to first be able to borrow against their CLOA, and secondly, to be able to lease it. If somebody is more efficient, he wants to lease the land, why don't you lease the land? Right now, under CARP, they cannot.
Bawal yun.
Bawal yun.
Okay.
Oh.
So
Bawal
what
rin
else?
yung mangungutang against your land, ah.
Okay.
Oh. So, yun ang kwan. And then, the other prescription that I'm saying is that we should have a competitive exchange rate.
What do you mean by that? Can you please
A
elaborate?
competitive exchange rate means that our peso is weaker relative to the other currencies. Okay, although now it's growing weaker, right?
Okay.
To about 46. But I'm for making it weaker. Why? It will benefit the economy in several ways. One is that it will increase the disposable income of OFWs, di ba? It will make our exporters more competitive, including BPO companies, because their cost in dollar terms would go down.
Yes.
Okay. It will deter smuggling in foreign competition because imported goods will be more expensive. So you'll shift to trying to fund local goods, correct? Those are some of the benefits of a competitive exchange rate. And that's what we should do. Those are the four elements of my prescription. The fifth is, of course, we need political reform and improve state capacity, you know, because we need to make our government accountable so that, you know, growth will become, you know, inclusive.
Okay. So, among or taking into consideration all of these recommendations you've been giving, how would you now grade the performance of the economic team of this present dispensation for the past 5 years? Anong grade bibigay mo? Saan sila nagkukulang? Let's start out on the bright side. Where have they excelled? What is the good they've done? Meron naman siguro.
Well, merong konti.
Okay.
Meron.
Simulan natin
Meron
doon
naman,
sa konti.
one is the conditional cash transfer where they expanded. Actually, President Arroyo started the conditional cash transfer program, no? O yung Pantawid Pamilya where the poorest Filipinos get a basic income. I think it's 1,500 pesos,
Okay.
so that their children can go to school. I'm for that.
Okay.
So they expanded it from about 6 billion to about, I think, 50 billion now a year. So I think that's one good thing that they have done.
Okay.
No?
The economic team to, ha?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the sin taxes is positive for the economy.
Okay.
As you know, you're a campaigner
Yeah.
against smoking, di ba?
Yes.
Di ba? So that's good because hopefully
Definitely.
fewer Filipinos will smoke because it's going to be more expensive. In fact, it should be much higher, di ba?
Much higher.
So
much
ikaw,
higher.
yun. So I would say it's positive for the economy, no? As long as the revenues generated from there are also used for health-related projects.
Yes, that is the law.
That is the law. Pero tingnan natin yung execution. Kaya
Okay.
importante yung execution, di ba? Para ma-improve yung health. Let's say for vaccination,
Right.
etc. Di ba?
Right.
Education. And right now, AIDS tumataas, di ba? Yung kwan. So dapat they should be, paying attention to that, how to prevent AIDS kwan, no? So those are some of the good things that they have done.
Those are the best things they've done.
Well, they have
What is the best?
open skies in a way. They have limited open skies. They've been able to. Although I would say the problem is the airlines are again consolidating. So before we used to have competition, mga 5-6 airlines. Ngayon 3 na lang ata. No?
Okay.
And then of course I don't think. They should have allowed the merger of one telecom with another telecom. So now there are only 2 players, major players now.
Okay, now let me ask you this, Toti. Ito ngayong the way that the world perceives us now as being investment grade because of the international financial institutions na binigyan tayo ng flying marks and flying grades and this seems to be an achievement na napapansin worldwide. Yung nagkaroon pa yata, sino yung bansa sa Europe na pinautang pa natin?
Yeah, sure.
So from a borrower, we've now become a lender. So how about that? Isn't that the biggest achievement of the economic team to get us to investment grade? In other words, open the Philippines and say, hey guys, now you can invest.
But are they investing? In fact,
Well, kabubukas lang ng pintuan eh.
we still have the lowest in Southeast Asia
Okay.
in terms of foreign direct investments. In fact, the foreign direct investments plunged by, I think, 60% the first quarter of this year.
Okay.
So, of what use is that investment grade if the investors are not really coming in?
So hindi achievement yun, Toti?
I mean, it's an achievement. I mean, it helps stabilize the finances.
Okay.
But, yan ba for the ordinary Filipinos, makakain ba niya yung investment grade? Hindi naman, di ba? Can they take that to the bank? Hindi. No? Ang importante is, magkakaroon ba ng trabaho o hindi?
Okay, ngayon, punta tayo sa what are the worst faults of this present administration when it comes to economic policy? Saan sila talaga lumagpak?
As I said, the growth has not been inclusive. So that's where I would give them a grade of D.
And that's their fault. The reason
That's
it
their
doesn't
fault
be
because the
inclusive.
structural issues have not been addressed.
Okay.
And
The things that you mentioned.
Yeah, especially on the constitutional restrictions on foreign investment, so which the president has been opposing. So that's why I would give them a D in that respect.
Okay.
But
Pag di, ano yan, failing na ba yan? Sa Lasal yan, repeat.
hindi.
Uulitin. No, this
Pasang-awa.
way. Pasang-awa. Okay, pasang-awa. Okay.
Pasang-awa,
Yeah.
you know.
Pero saan sila talaga lumagpak? Yung lagapak talaga. Yung, I mean, fail. No doubt about it.
Kasi
Wala naman.
dapat hindi. Yung nga, tatanungin natin ang ordinary Filipinos
Yeah.
kung they felt the benefit of these 6 years of growth. If they felt the investment rating, di ba?
Yeah.
O hindi. Yun ang yun ang bottom line
Yeah.
na feel ng ordinary Pilipino, no? Hindi yung statistics, hindi mo makakain yung statistics, di ba?
Okay.
O, yun.
So, realistically, anong time frame natin dito? Palagay na lang natin, well, without a doubt, there's going to be a different administration by next year.
Yes.
Okay, what ideally, pero in a practical world, how much ang percentage ng poverty ang dapat maalis within these 6 years? Realistically.
It depends on how fast is your growth.
Minimum.
Fast, China has been growing before for the past 30 years, double digit, 10 to 12% a year. Ang China.
Okay.
No, that's why siguro 500 million people have been lifted out of poverty sa China.
Because one-third of the population.
Yeah, because yun. So we can do the same thing if we adopt policies similar to them.
Okay.
They are very much open to foreign investments. Alam mo, ang investment spending doon, 47%. Tayo, 20% lang of GDP.
Okay. Mr. Toti Chikiamco, you have the floor now, just for yourself. Ano bang message mo sa ating mga kababayan? And our leaders, the policy makers, please.
Well, ang message ko lang is that the true measure of how successful economic policy is how it benefits our people, especially in terms of how it will reduce poverty, increase employment, increase incomes. So that's the true measure of really economic growth. Yun ang aking mensahe. So, maaaring maibang patakaran sinasabi ko, hindi politically correct. But sa palagay ko, wala tayong choice. We have to do this if you want to be able, be like China, or to have high economic growth and wipe out poverty.
Okay, so with that, thank you very much. Maraming salamat, Mr. Toti Chikiamco.
Thank you, Gerry.
And, well, we look forward to your comments and suggestions. You know how to get in touch with us, and we look forward to it. And please write to us or send us email at gerrycornejo@gmail.com, and it will definitely reach our guest, Mr. Calixto Chikiamco. And of course, again, nasa Facebook ka ba? Do you have a website or that they can go to?
Yung organization ko, the Foundation for Economic Freedom, is fef.org.ph.
Okay, there you go. And so, until next week, thank you very much for staying with us during the past hour. This is Open House with Gerry Cornejo. Take care. I love you. God bless you.